Welcome back, fight fans. Welcome back. Let's just dig right into it. Demetrius Andrade basically had an interview with Fight Hype the other day, in which he called out Errol Spence Jr., told him we can fight at 160 pounds. And, I just really wanted to sit back and think on this before I dug right into it. You're going to have a lot of biased fanboys say, oh, you're discredited because you picked Mikey to beat Errol Spence. So I just kind of want to address that first and then break down the Demetrius Andrade versus Errol Spence situation. First of all, I think that Mikey Garcia versus Errol Spence Jr. was an intriguing fight. It was a fight that no one asked for, that no one wanted, that came up out of the blue, and Errol Spence Jr. took the fight after Mikey Garcia called him out. Errol Spence didn't have to take the fight. He could have fought Terrence Crawford. He could have fought another welterweight. I understand there were some welterweights ducking him, but the fact that Terrence Crawford was open and available, and the fact that Errol Spence Jr. was looking only in Mikey Garcia's direction after being called out shows that he was looking to build his name and his brand. And I respect that. I understand in boxing, sometimes you got to build your name and your brand. And so I get what you're doing. But if you're going to do that, you have to be consistent. You can't pick and choose. So if you're willing to fight a guy moving up 2 weight classes, you have to be willing to move up 2 weight classes to fight a guy 2 weight classes above you. And Demetrius Andrade is that guy. This guy's calling you out. This is the second time I've heard Demetrius Andrade mention this guy. So the fact that Errol Spence Jr. is being called out by Demetrius Andrade, told him that they can fight at 160. And then, you're going to have a lot of fanboys. So I just want to debunk all the fanboys' excuses before they start. The first thing that I want to debunk is, guys say, what's the benefit for Errol Spence Jr.? First of all, if it's truly strap season and he's really trying to unify the welterweight division, fighting Mikey Garcia does not do that for you. So you have to understand, you were merely defending your title against Mikey Garcia in a voluntary defense. You weren't unifying belts. You weren't looking for Terrence Crawford. You weren't doing any of that. What you were doing was fighting a guy for clout. You were fighting Mikey Garcia to take his fan base and expand yours. That's exactly why Errol Spence Jr. took that fight, and for a hefty payday. So that's fine. You should do the same with Demetrius Andrade. Demetrius Andrade's at 160 pounds. And he has a world title. So not only would you be able to get a belt in another division, and he stated that Errol Spence Jr. has already stated that he'd move up to 160 to fight a Saul Canelo Alvarez. So if you beat Demetrius Andrade, you see Demetrius Andrade has a belt. And if you feel that you can beat Canelo, why not take on Demetrius Andrade? You stated that you want Canelo fight. That would be a great fight that you'd like to have. Why not fight Demetrius Andrade? Canelo Alvarez has already stated that he's trying to unify the middleweight division. Imagine what type of star Errol Spence Jr. would be if he moved up to middleweight, fought Demetrius Andrade, took the belt, and fought Canelo Alvarez. That would bring him to another level. That's the fight that he ultimately wants. And, the next thing that we got to debunk is these other fanboys' theory. Oh, Errol Spence Jr. fights heavyweights. He fights, all these big guys. Well, moving up to middleweight should be no problem. Should be absolutely no problem. That's a weight. And he's naturally at least 154 to 160. He's already stated in his past, according to BoxingScene.com, go research it, that he can see himself moving up as high as 168 pounds one day, but definitely fighting at 160. So none of this is out of the ordinary for Errol Spence. A lot of people felt like Mikey could never even survive at welterweight. Most people felt that Mikey Garcia's max weight was 140. I believe that Mikey Garcia is skilled. I was proved wrong. Welterweight was just too much for him. But I was right that Errol Spence Jr. didn't have the pop at welterweight that we thought he did. And that was proved right. Because at the end of the day, he was unable to stop a guy from 135 pounds moving up 2 weight divisions. So the fact that Errol Spence Jr. was called out by Demetrius Andrade, the fact that Demetrius Andrade has a world title, a name that he can grow his brand off of by winning a belt in another division and moving up in weight, and also possibly getting a Canelo Alvarez fight after that, since Canelo Alvarez's mission is to unify the middleweight division. This is a golden opportunity for Errol Spence Jr. Because after all, if it was truly strap season, he would have fought Terrence Crawford before Mikey. But let's just keep it going. So let's just break down the fight. So if we look at Errol Spence Jr., he has 25-0 with 21 knockouts. Errol Spence Jr. is 29 years old. He's 5'9.5" with a 72-inch reach. So Errol Spence Jr., that's his basically his overview. Then we're going to go over Demetrius Andrade. He's 27-0 with 17 knockouts. He's 31 years old, so Errol Spence Jr. would be the younger fighter by a few years. But he has he's 6'1" compared to Errol Spence Jr.'s 5'9.5". And he has a 73.5-inch reach compared to Errol Spence Jr.'s 72-inch reach. And so Demetrius Andrade would clearly have the height and reach advantage over Errol Spence Jr. And, Demetrius Andrade said something also interesting, that Errol Spence Jr. is a one-dimensional fighter. And I've always believed that Errol Spence Jr. was a one-dimensional fighter. I've never seen another dimension from Errol Spence Jr. other than aggressively moving forward, having lackluster head movement. But when he fought Mikey Garcia, he showed, and he showed his boxing abilities. He showed that he could box. He showed that he could move. He could use his height and reach to his advantage. Props to Errol Spence Jr. for showing that against a fighter 2 weight divisions below him. Has Errol Spence Jr. shown that against a true welterweight? No. Has Errol Spence Jr. shown that against anybody but a guy coming up 2 weights division? You have to be honest and unbiased when you analyze this situation. Errol Spence Jr. has only showed true boxing skills against a guy moving up 2 weight divisions. Now, credit for him showing it, but he has to prove it against a much bigger opponent. Now, I believe Errol Spence Jr. is still one-dimensional unless proven otherwise by showing those same skills against a true welterweight or anyone in a higher weight class. But most guys say no, he's more, he has multiple dimensions. He has this type of crazy boxing skills. He has tactical aggression. So if Errol Spence Jr. has all these tools and all these facets, it should be absolutely no problem to move up to 160 and prove it against a Demetrius Andrade. Because at the end of the day, will Errol Spence Jr. dare to be great? Once again, unbiased as always, it's the IBFP. Please share, like, and you must absolutely subscribe.